It seems to be the theme every week. Beautiful weather. This springtime.
Yeah. Hopefully that keeps up. I want to thank everyone for tuning in and let you know that you are listening to Philly Sports Talk with Cass and Chris right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that's sports. You want to start off with the baseball team that hasn't lost?
Hasn't lost, who? Oh, the Phillies. The Phillies are 4-0. The Phillies have been around for I read this last night, 138 years. I knew that, but I didn't have to read that part. The amazing part was this is only the fourth time in team history they've started 4-0.
Yes, I saw that too. And the last time they started out 4-0, they ended up 81-81. So that was 2 years ago.
Wow. So they've only two of the 4 times have happened in the last 4 years.
Yeah, amazing. Even if you go back to the 1993 team, they started out 3-0 with a 3-game sweep on the road against the Astros, and then they came home and dropped the home opener to the Cubs.
Wow, seems like yesterday.
It does, and I can remember just back then in '93, it was like I'm waiting for someone to give me a call on the phone so I can get the report of the game to see what happened.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of 93, this is 90s week here on IE Sports Radio. We're going to do a little segment about the 90s. We talked earlier. Philadelphia in the 90s had 40 seasons. We went 0 for 40. Two championships appearances out of 40 seasons. It was Phillies and Flyers. And
the Phillies in '93 who lost in 6 games to the Toronto Blue Jays, and of course you all remember the Joe Carter home run off Mitch Williams. And then the Flyers with Eric Lindros, John LeClair made it to the Stanley Cup Finals only one time in all the years Eric Lindros was there, and they lost 4 games straight to that dynasty of the Detroit Red Wings. Yeah,
they couldn't have. Both the Phillies and the Flyers played, dynasties and the great Hall of Fame players. Joe Carter, Paul Molitor. Red Wings had Steve Yzerman, Sergei Fedorov, Larry Anoff. Who was their goalie?
Oh boy,
I know.
That's a good question. You have to look that one up. That's not coming to me right now. I don't think Dominic Hasek was there at that time.
I want to say, the Flyers was Hextall, right? Was it still Hextall? Yeah. 1997. Yes. We have our staff in the back looking it up.
For those of you listening in, it's an interesting night because we have 3 Philadelphia sports games going on right now. The Phillies and Mets playing in Philadelphia. It's tied 0-0 in the bottom of the 3rd. And I'm not sure. The last I saw, the Flyers were getting beat 1-0 at home to the Boston Bruins. And the 76ers are playing the Celtics up in Boston, and they're down 1 in the first quarter.
And we're gonna slap ourselves for this one. It was Chris Osgood. I knew that. You knew that also.
My goodness. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, well, it's amazing how sometimes you forget those little things like that. But he sure stopped enough pucks in that series.
Yep. Yeah, the Sixers playing up in Boston. Everybody's written Boston off as a team that's they're struggling this year. They're going to be no problem for whoever plays them. I don't feel the same. I feel like they still have their core. They still have Tatum. They still have Brown. And they have a great coach in Brad Stevens, who we talked about before. And he has the Sixers figured out. I don't want to see them in the playoffs. I don't think the Sixers do either.
No, I would not like to see that as well. And I guess it'd be a different thing this year from last year if the Sixers are healthy. But that remains to be seen. Even though if they're healthy, I still think there's a problem. And tonight, the Sixers, for anyone who's caught any of the game tonight, they're doing the one thing that frustrates me the most about watching the Sixers play is they lack perimeter defense. You can get a wide open 3 against the Sixers almost any time you want, it seems like.
Yeah, which is surprising. With the Sixers having 2 all-NBA defenders in Thibault and Simmons, you would think they'd lock down the perimeter, but it's not the case. Like you said, they're not even contested threes. Those guys are getting open shots by no one in the vicinity. They're 5 feet open. And the thing too was I read a tweet that someone put out the other night, and
And it was real interesting after they lost at home to Memphis. And I said, why does every team we play turn into that good Golden State Warriors team that all they did was shoot threes?
It's true. I watched the Memphis game also. It seemed like it was a shooting clinic. That it was like the 3-point contest. Nobody, Desmond Bain, John Morant, these guys, not superstars, and it was a 3-fest. Dylan Brooks.
Well, and that's what happened earlier in the season when they dropped 2 games to the Cleveland Cavaliers. And, of course, those things are going to happen, as we discussed many times in the NBA. Mm-hmm. But the problem is, as we've mentioned often on this show, and we're going to reiterate it right again here, is if the Sixers aren't the number 1 seed in the East, they're going to have a difficult time. And, in my opinion, they won't make the NBA Finals. No,
and even to make that worse, do you see who's coming back tomorrow night for the Nets? Probable.
Yeah. KD's coming back, but Harden's out.
He's out for 10 days. They can't seem to get healthy either, that team. But despite the injuries, they've gone to first place in the conference. So.
Right, and I believe they play the Sixers next week, so I guess Harden will miss that game. So that game there, probably Brooklyn will win anyway.
Yeah, probably. April 14th, that game is. Who knows, by then, Embiid could be hurt again. It's frustrating being a Sixers fan, and lately it's been Ben Simmons back to his old habits, afraid to shoot. He has the yips, it seems like, from down below. He can't hit a layup. I heard a stat.
Well, and I think the stat I've read since January, he's shooting 45%, and the problem with that is his shots are all within the paint.
Exactly. It's 45%, 48% on layups.
And he was an all-star over Tobias.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. Well,
we said it before. And a basketball player, what's the first thing you do when you go with your dad when you're 7 years old to go play basketball? You shoot the ball.
Exactly what you do.
I can't understand how we have a guy that doesn't want to shoot a basketball. It's not his first year either. We're going on 4 years now. It's just, when do you give up? When do you give up?
Well, I guess the problem was that they kind of did give up, but there was some pieces that they couldn't work out into a trade to get James Harden, because I think if Harden was coming to Philadelphia, they would have moved Simmons for him.
Yeah, it seemed like the deal breaker in that was Tyrese Maxey, who can't even get on the court.
Yeah, I know, and it's one of those things too where, like you said, it's a guy who you won't see in the playoffs, because especially you don't see him now.
Yeah.
You won't see him in the playoffs. And what gets to be frustrating is, and it's got to be frustrating for Embiid, because in these games and even like tonight, as soon as he gets the ball, he's double teamed. But teams are okay double teaming him because one shooting threat is not on the floor. Right. Now, I don't know if George Hill is going to be someone who's going to make a difference, but it looks like from what I saw pregame here tonight that his timetable to come back now is questionable. They don't have one.
He had hand surgery. Who knows? Could be out for the season. I don't see how you don't look more into that before you make that trade.
Or if you're going to make that trade, you also have something else in mind. I mean, they keep talking about maybe there'll be a player that they can pick up whose contracts has been bought, but I don't think there's anyone there who's really going to make a difference.
No.
Okay, they want a center who can maybe stretch things out, who can shoot a little bit better from the outside, other than Dwight Howard. But anybody you're bringing in right now, if they're the difference maker, boy, you really got lucky.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't happen in the NBA. You don't see teams go win a championship that picked up a guy this late in the season. Teams that win it are teams that have been together all year and have to, or have LeBron James.
Yeah, there's no max stairs you can pick up at the end of August like the Phillies did back in 2008.
Right. Yeah, I was just going to say that the NBA is not Major League Baseball. You're not picking up other teams' trash and winning a title with it.
No, and I know we had touched on the Phillies to start. It's top 4 now, and it's still 0-0 against the Mets. So
yeah,
the Phillies offense hasn't come around in any of these first 5 games. I mean, they did have a nice explosion last night in the 5th inning, if you can call it an explosion, because it was helped out by error that led to 2 runs that the Mets made, and also by some stupid managing by pulling Jacob deGrom early.
Oh, you mean Oh yeah, the eighth inning or seventh.
Well, I'm saying, the eighth inning. The eighth inning last night is when the Phillies got all 5 of their runs, and they took the lead on an error on a throw from the third baseman home, which led in 2 runs. But it was one of those things too where I was just stunned to see that Jacob deGrom came out after 77 pitches in the 6th inning.
Yeah, apparently that was their plan because they didn't play Sunday, so he hadn't pitched in I think 7 or 8 days, so they didn't want him to go too long, especially how hard he throws. But it turned out to be in the Phillies' favor. We'll take it.
And a thing to look at here too tonight. We don't know what the outcome of this game is going to be, but it would be the 5th day. I mean, Aaron Nola should be on the mound tonight.
I said the same thing. Why not skip the 5 starter and go right to Nola? Yep.
Yeah, exactly. But then the guy who's the 5th starter, he hasn't given up any runs here through 4, except he's let the leadoff man on here in the 4th inning. But just talking about the Phillies, though, it was a team where we last year, as fans of this team, as we've mentioned, I mean, 49 times last year they had to lead in a game and couldn't hold it, and that was largely due to the fact they had their worst bullpen ever. And I'm just thankful this year that when you go down there and you look in the bullpen, you don't see Tommy Hunter, you don't see Adam Morgan, Brandon Workman, Austin Davis, guys like that, Cole Irvin. These guys you don't see them because those guys coming into games, you could just put runs on the board before they took the mound.
Yeah, it's a different feeling this year. The whole team seems like a more professional team. It reminds me more of Tampa Bay from last year, where they can patch together a couple runs and rely on the bullpen to hold the lead. But
my only drawback right now is
closer.
Yes, the closer, Hector Neris. And, I mean, he's done the job so far since he's been in, but if anyone knows him well enough from before, well, the Mets took the lead. It's 2-0 on a home run.
Dominic Smith.
And that's one of those things, too, where last night Alvarado came in, and he did end up closing the game, but when you come in with a 3-run lead, the go-ahead run should not bat, especially when you get the first 2 guys out and the next batter you're 0-2 on.
Yes. Man, you look at this. I'm sorry. You look at this Chase Anderson. He's him and the 4 and 5 starter in center field. It's not going to do it.
No, it's holes, and it's holes that championship teams that make the playoffs, you do not have. And really, when you look at what they did in the bullpen, I mean, what they put in there and how well they performed this early, and what it looks like those guys can be. Of course, there's going to be games where they come in and give up runs and where they get hit around, but the bullpen's so much better. But when you look at the back end of the rotation, it's one of those things to where, okay, obviously 4 and 5. On most teams, of course, they're not going to be dominant pitchers, but the Phillies had every opportunity to put someone there better than who's there now.
Sure. You let Corey Kluber go by. Corey Kluber was there for the taking. Trevor Bauer didn't sign to the last minute.
Correct, and that would be something that would definitely be better than what they're going to try to. And the thing too is what they're putting out there now. You know, these guys are not going to be in the rotation halfway through the season. They're just not going to make it. They're going to have to try to look at maybe Vince Velasquez, which hopefully they don't need to do. Spencer Howard, Adonis Medina, maybe two guys they can call up, but those guys are not anything special at this point either. So, and when you get on those, if you get into a situation where if Eflin gets hit around and has a bad game, or one of the top 2 has a bad game, you can look to easily lose in 3 out of 5.
Yeah, I mean, I like Eflin's approach this year. He seems more committed. He made a there was a quote the other night. He said that he's looking at this season as if the hitters on the other team are going to take food off his family's table. He's going with that kind of approach. So
yeah, he kind of said I always want to pitch better than the guy who started before me. Well, if he can come close to the guy who starts before him, then he's going to be there and really help the Phillies this year.
Sure.
But this is one of those games tonight where after 4 innings without having any runs, just waiting for that one big inning and not getting runs early in games, or getting innings where they have what they always call putting crooked numbers on the board to do it yet. Even though it's only 5 games in, the Phillies are going to have to try to fix that. But when you look at tonight, especially now with the National League going back to the pitchers batting, and when you have Roman Quinn batting 8th, that's just 2 outs in the lineup.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I'm looking through the lineup now. They haven't for a 4-0 team. The offense hasn't exactly done anything.
No, they got 9 runs in the Braves series, and they got 5 runs last night, but the majority of those 5 runs were unearned. Yeah. But that was only in 1 inning. Now, obviously, the first 6 innings they were facing the best pitcher in baseball, sure. So you can't you really couldn't tell about the offense then. But tonight's a different story. It's not Jacob deGrom out there.
No, I'm looking at Roman Quinn. Roman Quinn, he's already been on the team too long. He's hitting. What's he, 0 for 5? Yeah, he's 0 for 5. He hasn't hit a hit yet this season.
Well, and like you said, that's the problem right there, center field.
Yeah, he's a career 232 hitter. He's 27 years old. How much longer are we going to wait on this guy?
Well, and the fact that he might be one of the fastest guys in baseball doesn't make a difference if you don't get on.
Yeah, he could be the fastest running to the dugout after he gets out.
True, and see that's the thing too, where as a fan you look at it and you're like, okay, well, we know center field's a problem. Odubel Herrera is not the answer. Mickey Moniak is not the answer. Adam Hazley is not the answer. Roman Quinn is not the answer. So at some point it's going to have to be addressed.
It has to be, and I guess you have to see where you're at.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if they keep this going, it's going to be the talk of the town. What moves we making? Who's available? You got to look around baseball too. See other teams, like Boston. Boston's going to struggle this year. They're going to have players like J.D. Martinez, Alexander Bogaerts. There's going to be players available that are coming up in the final years of their contracts.
Right. There should be, and hopefully the Phillies play well enough to where when you get closer to that trade deadline, that there's something like that they can acquire another player. The only problem is there's not too many prospects that the Phillies have.
No, not at all. Look at us. Four games into the season, trying to make moves already.
Yeah, they're 4-0, and they're 4-0, and we're talking about what the problems are. But that's the thing. But that's the thing with baseball. I mean, they won those 4 games. The Braves are 0-4. Does anyone believe that the Braves are not going to be fighting for the division championship once the season's all said and done?
Not at all. They'll be right there.
Yeah, they'll be right there.
I mean, their pitching's not exactly what I thought it would be, but there's no.
When Game 4 you're starting Drew Smiley, that might just that might let you know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? The division's not what people talk it to be. They talk this to be like the best division in baseball. I don't see it.
Well, and the thing too is, I think a lot of reasons that they do is Atlanta's been good the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. Washington had the World Series two years ago, and when you look at it, of course, I mean the Mets have some players who are arguably the best at their position in baseball, but they're still the Mets. Yeah, they signed Lindor, and I look for Lindor to struggle. It seems like everybody that signs with the Mets struggles. They gave and they signed McCann to be the catcher, and I mean that was their backup plan when they realized they weren't going to sign JT Realmuto. Right. And I mean he's not a bad addition to the team. So you're right. I mean I don't think the division is what a lot of people think it is, but with the teams that are there, when you look at the top 4 teams, if you discount Miami, you can see any one of those top 4 teams winning the division. Yeah, I mean, I think Washington's taken a step back. I don't think they're the same team that they were. They lost a lot of players. They still have the pitching. They still have Max Scherzer. Trey Turner's a nice young player. Juan Soto is obviously a top 10 player in all of baseball. Right, and not having. I'm forgetting this. Anthony Rendon not being there. I don't mind not seeing him. Yes, Anthony Rendon. He's in Anaheim, right? Yes, he's out there with Mike Trout. Think about Anaheim. What a frustrating team that must be to be a fan of. Every year they have great players and they never win. And when they signed Albert Pujols, it looked like it was going to be a situation where now they got the person who can be there to protect Trout, and it's just the rest of the team kind of had let them down over the last few years, and their pitching didn't hold up.
Yeah, but that offense is world class. Justin Upton, they got Anthony Rendon, Albert Pujols, Mike Trout, Ohtani. That's a tough lineup. Man.
Exactly, and there's no pitcher that comes up in 1 through 9 either. So
right, yeah, like you said,
they lost again today to the Houston Astros, who are off to a great start.
Yeah, it just goes to show you, baseball's all about pitching.
Yeah, I don't know if everyone, when you look at the fact that the Astros have started off well, I mean, they might be cheating again. What do you think?
Let me see. What's that sound coming from the dugout?
Don't rip my shirt off. Don't rip my shirt off.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they kind of got a pass on that with the COVID shortened season and no fans last year.
They did. I wonder how it's going. I haven't noticed that opposing teams are booing them.
No, and the other thing too is that, I mean, I was talking about this with my wife earlier. It was just bizarre to see, because I was watching the Texas Rangers game last night, and in Texas, I mean, there's no restrictions for anything. They had a sellout crowd, so that was interesting to see a full crowd at a baseball game.
I saw that this morning. The sellout crowd with most of them not wearing masks either.
True.
That's gonna be something to look at if the cases spike in Texas or not.
Yeah, and I hope that there's nothing though that comes around that affects the Phillies, because I don't like that. I don't like what happened to Washington, even though that was probably, from all reports, it was probably something that happened in house and was their fault. But if true that what Washington did led to that, I mean, that's their fault. Let them suffer, but it shouldn't hurt other teams.
Yeah, who was the whistleblower though? They tell on themselves that they weren't wearing a mask.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know, but true, it's one of those things too. When you look at that report, where it's like somebody can pick up COVID, not know it. Then once you get on a plane and you're in the dugout and you're around those guys, I mean, it just spreads. I mean, as much as hockey did everything that they could do, and did really, really well with keeping COVID away from being real serious in hockey. I mean, it did affect some games. It did affect some games here, especially in the Flyers division. But what happened to Vancouver? I mean, still we're in a situation where it's one of those things that can happen to any team at any time in any sport.
Sure. Yeah, the Phillies added 3,000 more fans too, right? They're up to 11,000 now.
Yeah, I think they have. And our favorite player, the best catcher in baseball, just struck out. So
no way.
Yeah, I mean, that's shocking that JT Realmuto struck out, but that's one thing I did notice with the Phillies. I mean, they're still a strikeout team, though. They strike out way too much, and it's just something that hopefully they're going to be able to get around.
And they're also they're not a patient team. They swing at the first pitch too much.
Bryce Harper does that way too much in my opinion as well, or. I know he's a guy who's trying to always be aggressive, and we've seen here early in the season where he's trying to take that extra base, and it hasn't worked. And sometimes it's better to be smart than aggressive.
Yeah, he's overly aggressive. You know, he's trying to earn his contract on every play.
Well, and Didi Gregorius with the center field home run cut the lead to 2-1.
Hey, Didi. That's our second home run of the season.
Yes, and it wasn't by the best catcher in baseball. It was by his replacement, Andrew Knapp. Yeah.
Another interesting thing I heard about the Phillies game is that if you buy a beer at the game, you have to buy food with it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they basically have to do the same thing that the bars and restaurants do. Is you can't just buy an alcohol, you have to buy food. So they're selling pretzels at all the beer stands.
So, yeah, I was just going to say, so there's no beer-only lines.
Right.
At the ballpark.
Yep. We talked about just now about the Phillies being patient. That'll go back to our 90s theme a little bit. 1993, what I loved about that team was their patience at the plate. Dave Hollins, Lenny Dykstra. They got you in that bat. Darren Daulton, John Kruk. The other pitchers were throwing 100 pitches by the fifth inning so often. They were smart players.
Another guy who always got deep into counts too was Jim Eisenreich. He was very valuable on that team. Well, he was. If I remember right, he was part of that Marlins team in '97 with Darren Daulton, who ended up winning the World Series.
Jim Eisenreich?
Yes.
Yeah, he was. Yep. Darren Daulton and Jim Eisenreich won the World Series in Florida with the Florida Marlins.
Yeah, that's when the guy who eventually became the Phillies closer. I think he still holds the record for most saves as a Philly. Jose Mesa. That was when he couldn't hold it down for the Indians in '97.
Yeah, Jim Thome on that team.
On the Indians, I believe he was. I believe he was on the Indians.
Charlie Manuel was the manager.
How that Indians team never won a World Series. I mean, they had an all-star in almost every position. When you go around and remember Manny Ramirez on that team, and like you said, Jim Thome, and just the players they had, and they didn't win it.
Kenny Lofton, center field.
Yeah, the amazing thing too is when you think about the '90s, and when you look at the Phillies as being a Phillies fan in the '90s, though the Braves were in the other division, the Braves were always good, especially with that pitching they had, and they only ended up winning one World Series, but of course that was beating the Indians.
Yeah, amazing. They only won one World Series with Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, John Smoltz, Steve Avery, Kent Merker.
Yeah, I remember I have a book. It's entitled Baseball Gold, and I got this book a number of years ago, and it just had interesting, rare things in baseball. And whenever someone mentions Tom Glavine, it was in all the years that Tom Glavine pitched for the Braves. In all of his starts, the Braves had only lost one game that he started by 13 runs. And the first game he started for the Mets lost 15-2.
Wow.
But hey, I remember. I guess Tom Glavine was on the mound for the Mets. It came down to the last game of the season. I think that was '97. It was the Mets and the Marlins, the Phillies and the Nationals, and the Phillies ended up beating the Nationals to clinch the division. And Tom Glavine just got shelled in that game against the Marlins.
Wait, that was '97?
No, I'm sorry, '07.
Okay, I was going to say. I remember I was in my house now, and I was like, I don't remember that being 20-something years ago.
No. Hey, but you remember the curveball from Brett Myers for the called third strike.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that was it.
What a day that was, that the Marlins helped the Phillies make the playoffs. The Marlins were, 60 and 100 that year, probably?
And the funny thing about that was the Phillies game started, I believe, a half hour later than the Mets game, and by the time the Phillies game started, the Mets were already behind by 4.
Yeah, it was a 105 game. Yep, I remember. Yep.
Yeah. And that was, and then the Phillies lost 3 games straight in the playoffs to the Colorado Rockies, but the next year everything worked out fine.
Yep. All right, we're about halfway through.
Yeah, we'll touch on a couple more things from the '90s, and we'll talk Sixers probably here a little bit, and then we'll try to talk some. We'll get the Flyers minute in.
Flyers second.
Yeah, and before we go to break, I just want to let everyone know that we have a thing here. It is from Legacy Financial. And they want everybody to know that, yes, last year was a tough year, however, but they want everyone to stay positive, keep your faith, and continue working hard. That is the goal. If you are in any financial struggle at the moment and you need some help, or if you're doing well and you want to get to the next level, either way, give them a call. Give Legacy Financial a call. Also, if you're looking for a new opportunity to work for yourself and earn more money part-time, give Legacy Financial a call. Call AO at 510-928-2104. Once again, the number for Legacy Financial, and call AO at 510-298-2104. Book your appointment today. Andrew and AO are just 2 people on a mission to help families build a legacy. Legacy Financial. Look them up. They're there to help everyone.
All right. And Once again, you're listening to Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, hear me and hear me good. If you like sports, then you like the Wait a Minute Show. If you like comedy, then you like the Wait a Minute Show. If you like a different opinion coming from a different angle, then you like the Wait a Minute Show. So join me Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with your host, Jelani J.B. Bodie. And of course, my man Lopan on the waitaminuteshow.com. Ain't that right, Lopan?
Hey, what's up, sports fans? You're looking for a different type of sports talk show, something you haven't heard before? You gotta check out the BS3 Sports Show every other Saturday on 2 Live Stews Radio, 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern. Sports talk at its finest. Always have great guests, playing some good hip-hop. You don't want to miss it. Make sure to tune in to the BS3 Sports Show every other Saturday at 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern.
What's up, everybody? This is Taryn Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunder Spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's going on, football fans? This is me, your boy Larry, inviting you to join myself, Colin Reynolds, Mike Pat, and John Felipe for one of the most electrifying football shows you have ever heard. 3 and Out, right here at IE Sports Radio. Recap of the week before, a preview of what's to come, and of course, 3 hardcore head-to-head prime-time face-offs each week. You don't want to miss it.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy, awesome white tea. They're coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Philly Sports Talk. And next up, we have what's quickly becoming America's favorite segment of any sports talk show, Your Flyers Minute with Chris.
Yes, the Flyers Minute this week. Interesting game last night against Boston. The Flyers ended up getting a goal from Travis Sanheim in overtime to win the game, and it brought the Flyers within 3 points of a playoff spot. And the same thing I've been saying all along, I don't think the Flyers are going to be a playoff team this year, and I think actually if Boston drops out of that last playoff spot, I think it could be the Rangers who make it into that fourth playoff spot, and Boston and the Flyers may be looking at a season where they both don't make the playoffs. The Flyers are now tied 2-2 at home against Boston, and it's a game where the Flyers definitely need to get a point, but getting 2 points and keeping a point away from Boston would be a good thing. But I still think a lot of the problems that the Flyers have on defense is something that's going to catch up with them, and I still think they're not a playoff team. And that there is your Flyers Minute.
Wow. It's hard even from a casual hockey fan like myself to hear Boston's not going to make the playoffs. They seem like a powerhouse team. Wow.
Well, right now, like I said, they have a 3-point lead over the Flyers. But
Okay.
They have been struggling lately, and it looks like the Rangers are turning into a team that's for real.
Yeah, they looked good against the Flyers. They dominated the Flyers. 8 goals, 9 goals.
Yeah, the Flyers did get a 2-1 win against them where Brian Elliott played extremely well, but you're right, some of those games the Rangers just really beat the Flyers. I think, like you said, 8 goals in one. I think they got 6 in another one, and they look like they're, if not this year, that Rangers team's going to be good going forward.
Yep. All right, we're going to get back to our 90s theme on 90s week. We're going to go, we're going to look at the Sixers draft picks over the course of the 90s. Something I enjoy doing, looking at Sixers old draft picks and looking at what colleges and see how their career panned out.
Yeah, wait till you hear all these all-stars and great players the Sixers drafted throughout the 90s. I think there may be 2 on the list that will stand out. Other people you might be shaking your head thinking, who was that guy?
Right. Start back in the first year, 1990. Sixers didn't have a first-round draft pick, so they picked a familiar name. The second round pick was an early second round pick. They picked Brian Oliver out of Georgia Tech. He was one of the I think he played there with Dennis Scott and the 3D. Who was the other guy? Georgia Tech.
Cash, that's going to be all you to come up with.
No, I just heard it last night because I heard Dennis Scott talking about him. He was explaining how he was called 3D.
Well, the only thing I know about Georgia Tech back then was Georgia Tech was a pretty good college team back then. They always seemed to be in the Sweet 16, or at least someone to look out for in the tournament.
Yeah, Kenny Anderson was the guy I was thinking of.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he had a long career. And then the other pick, the second round, was Derek Strong from Xavier, who actually played 456 games in the NBA.
Wow.
Yeah. Then the 1991, they picked everyone's favorite, Alvaro Teheran from Houston. He played exactly 0 games in the NBA. That's their 1991 draft. Then 1992, a familiar name for Philadelphia fans, the Spoon, Clarence Weatherspoon.
Yes, Clarence Weatherspoon, I remember. I believe he was taken with the 9th pick in the draft, and he was the guy who the Sixers drafted. That was the season. That was the same season where they traded Charles Barkley. So
yeah, they never actually played together, right? And
no,
and they were very similar players, Spoon and Charles. Similar build, similar game.
Yeah, but not similar stats.
No, Clarence played. He did play 915 games in the league. He scored 10,000 points, 6,800 rebounds. No, not a slouch.
No, but just think they drafted Clarence Weatherspoon, and after trading Charles Barkley for Tim Perry, Andrew Lang, and Jeff Hornacek.
Yep.
I think the Suns got the better of that deal.
Yeah. They reached the finals, lost to the Bulls.
Yeah, it was interesting when I was thinking back on that too. I can remember the day in the finals when the Bulls ended up beating, I think it was in 6 games when they ended up beating the Suns, and I remember being at a Phillies game that day. I think it was Father's Day, and John Krupp hit an 8th-inning, 3-run home run to put the Phillies ahead over the Marlins. Wow. And I just remember leaving, okay, this will be a good day. Charles Barkley will win Game 6 and get to a Game 7. Well, that didn't happen, though.
Yeah, that's the one thing Charles Barkley never did, win a championship. Karl Malone also. Oh, wait, did Karl Malone win one with the Lakers? No, he didn't. So Karl Malone never won a title either. 2 great players, 2 Hall of Famers, never got to the promised land because of one player, Michael Jordan.
Right, and that's interesting too, because you think about the Houston Rockets, who got 2 titles in the '90s, but they did not have to go up against the Chicago Bulls in either of those NBA finals. Yeah. It would have been interesting to see how it would have been to see the Rockets against the Bulls, and if the Bulls had Jordan.
Well, that was Michael's baseball seasons, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they played the Knicks both seasons, right? They played the Knicks.
I know they played the Knicks to Game 7 one year, and I don't know who else they did. They beat Orlando one year?
with Shaq, yeah.
Yeah, they swept Orlando that 1 year. Yeah.
All right, so we go to 1993. The Sixers took Sean Bradley out of BYU with the 2nd pick, who played in the league for a long time. Played 832 games, almost as many as Weatherspoon. Recently got in a motorcycle accident.
The only thing I remember about Sean Bradley was the fact that he was a Mormon coming from BYU, and I guess there was 2 years there where he took off basketball to go on his Mormon mission. And other than that, the only memory I have is the first game he played with the Sixers. I believe he hit the game-winning shot against Washington. But other than that, it just seemed like he was another version of Manute Bol.
I'm looking at his stats. He shot 10% from 3. I would have said he never made a 3, but let me see how many he actually made. That's funny. Totals. He made 4. You know who else has made 4? Ben Simmons.
Hey, well, I don't know what to say about that. I don't think that's either good or bad at this point. But
I think Manute Bol made like 6 or 7 in one game.
He made 6 in a game out in Phoenix against Charles Barkley.
Yeah, that's right.
Just think about that.
So they also had a 2nd-round pick, the 32nd pick again. They picked Alfonso Ford. I remember that name. He was from Mississippi Valley State.
What was the one NBA highlight with him?
Alfonso Ford?
Yes. I don't think there was one. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I was going to say, he played 11 games. I thought you had something in those 11 games.
No. It's just like, how do they pick these guys and they don't even really have that much, certain guys don't have an impact.
Well, he went to Mississippi Valley State. That's the same college that Jerry Rice went to.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Same type of player there, Alfonso Ford and Jerry Rice. All right, so we go to the 1994. The Sixers had 3 picks. I remember all 3 names. I'm sure you will. They picked Sharon Wright at the 6th pick from Clemson. I'd like to see who they passed over to take him. I'm going to go to that. And they also had the 20th pick that year. They picked B.J. Tyler from Texas, who never panned out.
Right.
And then the 2nd round, they picked Derek Alston, who he only played 139 games, from Duquesne.
Yeah, and I remember Sharon Wright was another one of those guys, similar build to Charles Barkley, and had a little bit of a presence inside and could rebound, but just wasn't that much of an NBA player. He was on the Sixers team when they had, and I'm trying to remember the coach. I can see his face. I forget his name. The bald guy with the mustache.
Johnny Davis?
No, not Johnny.
Oh, I know who you mean. John Lucas.
Yes, John Lucas. Yes,
Yep.
I remember John Lucas was in love with Sharon Wright, but that just didn't pan it.
So here's who went after Sharon Wright. So we can't really throw the Sixers under the bus for this one. There wasn't many great players in that draft. Right after them was Lamond Murray. He played 11 seasons in the league. He did average 11 points a game. You know, then Brian Grant from Xavier, Eric Montross from North Carolina. There we go. Eddie Jones. They passed up on Eddie Jones.
Yeah, and it was one of those things there you can see for a couple of years there, the Sixers were trying to replace that presence that Charles Barkley had in the down in the paint and on the block by trying to get a forward or a dominating center. And all throughout the 90s, the Sixers, they just could not get someone who could fill in that center spot. And that'd be an interesting conversation someday to see who those centers were throughout the 90s. And even when the Sixers finally did make the finals in 2001, they had to trade to get their center, Dikembe Mutombo.
Yeah, because they had Matt Geiger and Theo Ratliff.
Correct.
They weren't going to cut it. So,
yeah, Todd McCullough and those guys, they just didn't pan out.
Actually, delivered mail to Todd McCullough. Then Jalen Rose went 13th. That's a notable. Aaron McKee went 17th to Portland. And after that, Wesley Person, a good player out of Auburn, he went to Phoenix at 23. So it's not like they missed out on a Hall of Famer. It's a shame because before Sharon Wright was Glenn Robinson, Jason Kidd, Grant Hill, Donyell Marshall, who say what you wanted, I think he underachieved, and Juwan Howard. So that was not a particularly strong draft.
Yeah, but if you throw Sharon Wright in with those five names, one will stick out that doesn't fit.
Yeah, Sharon Wright. All right, let's go to 95. Sixers had one pick. They picked not a Hall of Famer, but a second tier, Jerry Stackhouse, number 3 out of North Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah, Jerry Stackhouse was an interesting player in Philadelphia. It just and of course we're going to get to the pick that they take the next year, which is Allen Iverson.
Right.
And the two of them just could not seem to work well. And I still vividly remember Jerry Stackhouse being interviewed after he was traded from the Sixers, and he used one of those old sports cliches that I never really understood, where he said, well, this is just an addition by subtraction.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you say they didn't work out. They were two ball-dominant players. They needed to have the ball in their hands.
Correct.
They weren't going to blend. Allen Iverson's a Hall of Famer, my favorite Sixer of all time, but he needed to be on that 2001 team with a bunch of defenders. Larry Brown did a great job that year.
Yeah, he did. And also it was one of those things, too, where Philadelphia was fortunate to be able to get Larry Brown to come in. I mean, Larry Brown had a huge influence on Allen Iverson, and it'd be an interesting show just to hear us talk about Allen Iverson memories, both good and bad.
Yeah, it was. It was like a soap opera in Philly those years. And that was before the social media.
and Pat Croce coming in, and I don't remember exactly what game it was, but it was. The Sixers were making a push the one year, and they came back. Allen Iverson did something to violate team protocol. He will be suspended by the team for the game tonight. And it's just like, wait a minute. Why would you, okay, fine him, do whatever, but don't tell him he's not playing.
I know.
You're right. A soap opera is what it was.
Yep.
Practice?
Yeah.
Practice?
Yeah, talking about practice. So, 96 obviously was Iverson's year. They had 4 picks that year. Mark Hendrickson, and went after that, Ryan Miner and Jamie Fike. None of those players made it.
Mark Hendrickson's interesting because Mark Hendrickson was a pitcher in baseball.
Yeah.
He pitched, I remember him pitching for the Orioles and for the Marlins. And for a long time here in a local league that we have, it's over in York County. It's called the Susquehanna Baseball League. And Mark Hendrickson actually pitched in that league. And if I'm not mistaken, he actually pitched against my brother. So... Interesting when you hear Mark Hendricks.
And your brother, I'm sure, had a home run against them, right?
I don't think so, but
well, he actually played 114 games in the NBA.
Yeah.
I know he pitched, and I thought he played baseball mostly. Let me see. All right, so then you go to the next season where they had the number 2 pick. Which is crazy because you had Allen, you had a chance there to add another superstar, and they took Keith Van Horn.
Out of Utah.
Yeah. So they took Keith Van Horn, and they passed on Chauncey Billups. They passed on not really a great draft. Austin Crozier, who hurt them with Indiana.
Who went right before Keith Van Horn?
Tim Duncan.
Okay.
Yeah. We were one player away. I think. Imagine having Allen Iverson and Duncan. We would have probably won a handful of championships.
Well, that there was the original process. How they ended
Exactly.
up getting Tim, when they kind of tanked that season because the Admiral was hurt.
Yep. The lottery ball would have fallen a different way. We would have had Tim Duncan, a swimmer out of Wake Forest.
I don't know. The Sixers might have traded that away for like Roy Hinson's cousin or something.
They also took Marco Milic that year, Kebu Stewart, and James Collins. I remember the names, not much about their games, though. In the following year, they took Larry Hughes out of St. Louis, number 8.
Right before Paul Pierce.
Right before Paul Pierce, like we were talking about before the show. They took him because Larry Brown promised his family that they would take Larry Hughes if he was there.
Paul Pierce has made some news in the last day or two. Have you seen that?
I did. He went Instagram Live. He brought the strip club to his house.
Kids, he is not a role model.
Yeah. ESPN got rid of him right away.
Yeah.
He didn't seem to care about that either. He was tweeting about that right away. They actually didn't.
Just an update, though. The Phillies are still down one run. It's 2-1, but Vince Velasquez with a clean inning.
Hey.
1, 2, 3, and he struck 2 out. So
there we go.
There's something different in that bullpen. Hopefully the Phillies can get a couple runs here.
Yeah, it's rubbing off. Here's something interesting. The Sixers didn't. Paul Pierce didn't go next. I thought he did for all these years. You know who went next after Larry Hughes?
Was Larry Hughes 8th?
Larry Hughes was 8th. Paul Pierce was 10th.
10. Who was 9?
9 was Dirk Nowitzki.
Well, okay. Who was running the Sixers at that time?
Brad Greenberg?
I don't know, but oh my goodness.
Yeah, Dirk.
This is starting to sound like what the Eagles do now. Let's see who they take, who gets picked after the Eagles draft, and who turns out to be a superstar.
Exactly. I mean, I'm on Basketball Reference. I don't remember that this was the case either. Dirk was drafted by Milwaukee and traded to Dallas. I don't remember that.
Yeah, I don't remember that either, because all you ever think about is him being a member of the Dallas Mavericks. Well, that's the same way with Kobe Bryant. He wasn't drafted by
That's
the
true.
Lakers.
He was drafted by Charlotte. Yeah, the Charlotte Hornets.
Vlade Divac, I guess, was traded for him.
Yeah.
That kind of worked out for LA, didn't it?
Vlade Divac. They couldn't have known because back then high school players weren't being drafted. It wasn't the thing. He was drafted 13th, Kobe, when he should have been number 1. So this draft here is interesting. This Larry Hughes draft had Michael Olowokandi from Pacific go number 1, then Mike Bibby, Rafe LaFrentz from Kansas, Anton Jameson, Vince Carter, both from Carolina. Then 6 was Robert Traylor. He went to Dallas. He died last year, Robert Tractor Trailer.
Wow.
Yeah. And then Jason Williams from Florida. He played a long time in the league. And then Larry Hughes. Larry Hughes actually played 13 seasons in the NBA.
Yeah, who did the Sixers trade him to? I don't remember.
Larry Hughes. He went from the Sixers to Golden State.
Okay.
Yeah. And then he played for Washington, Cleveland, Chicago, the Knicks, Charlotte. He bounced around.
Yeah.
They called him the Flight Brothers, him and Allen Iverson.
They did. That was their nickname for a little bit. Like my Larry Hughes memory is the fact that he had the game-winning tip-in for the Sixers, and I think 5 minutes later they said, "Yo, you've been traded."
Where do we go next? That was 98. They also took Casey Shaw with the 37th pick. He played a whole 9 games and 14 minutes in the NBA and scored 2 points.
No, that's more than I've done.
Yeah. Thanks, Casey. And then 1999, we talked about him earlier. The second round, 47th pick, Todd McCullough out of Washington.
Still trying to get that center.
Yeah. Not a bad baby. He actually played in the NBA for a 47th selection. That's not too bad. That's, nice little reach.
He was the second coming of Mike Jaminski.
Yeah. And the future of Matt Geiger.
Yes.
So that wraps it up. That wraps the 90s up. So basically, we got Allen Iverson and Jerry Stackhouse.
Correct. And even getting Keith Van Horn, I mean, he didn't work out in Philadelphia. He was traded for Derek Coleman from the Nets. And it was interesting, too, that there was a point in time in the 90s that the Sixers had 3 number 1 overall picks on their team. They had Derek Coleman, they had Joe Smith, and they had Allen Iverson. Joe
Smith, out of Maryland.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, he played for Golden State.
And I guess the one thing the team we haven't touched on is the Eagles. And I guess what's the one tweet I read that was kind of funny is like the Phillies have won 4 games, their first 4, and that's all the Eagles won last year, and that's probably all they're going to win this year.
4-4. All right, we have 3 minutes left.
There's no NASCAR to talk about except for the race coming up this week.
Yeah, we can make a pick. I'll pick Kyle Busch.
And I'll go with Denny Hamlin.
Are you going to pick Denny Hamlin every race this season?
Until he wins.
Until he wins. I knew that was coming.
No, but, well, I mean, I guess he's leading the points, but he hasn't won a race yet.
Yeah, he's leading the points. He's run good. He just hasn't won. There's been a lot of different winners.
Yeah, and when we had touched on it real quick, and the one thing I wanted to just throw out there when we were talking about the 90s, and since it's the start of baseball season, there was a couple things from the 90s though that did stick out with, and it all surrounded the All-Star game with the Phillies, and we'll cram these in here real quick. And it was 1993, the All-Star game. The Phillies actually had the battery of Terry Mulholland and Darren Dalton to start that game, so the Phillies haven't done that since then. I think that's the second time in history that the Phillies had a battery to start the game. And I'll ask you this question and see if you know this. It happened in 1994. It's the last Phillies pitcher to win an All-Star game. Do you know who that was?
1994. Was it Kurt Schilling?
Doug Jones.
Doug Jones.
With Jim Fregosi being the manager that year, and National League won. I think they won it on a walk-off hit by, I think it was Moises Alou had the walk-off hit game. And the only other All-Star memory from the 90s was, I believe it was the 90s, John Kruk batting off of Randy Johnson.
Yeah.
Turned his helmet backwards.
Yeah, everybody remembers that one.
Mm-hmm.
He should have just batted right-handed.
Well, he didn't need it back because he was going up there and just going up there and hopefully not trying to get hit.
I wonder if he ever faced him in a regular season.
That's a good question. I don't know, and it's one of those things too now where as hard as Johnson threw back then, there's tons of pitchers that throw that hard now.
Right. Like that's what I was thinking last night watching Jacob deGrom pitch. All right, well, hate the rush, but it was a quick hour, and we got to go. We got Taryn Rodriguez up next doing Set Point. It's been our 5th episode was a great one, and we thank you for listening.
Yes, and everyone, thanks for listening, and I want to remind you once again of what I spoke of before, and that's about Legacy Financial. And yes, it's been a tough year. Everyone, stay positive, keep your faith, keep working towards your goals. Legacy Financial is there to help you. If you are in trouble and need help, Legacy Financial can help you. If you're doing well, Legacy Financial is there to help you keep doing well. If you're looking for some part-time work to earn yourself some extra money, give AO a call at 510-928-2104. Get an appointment with Andrew. Get an appointment with AO. And these people are on a mission to help families build a legacy. Always keep in mind Legacy Financial. Thanks, guys.
See you guys.